The Pelicans replaced Lonzo by adding Devontae Graham from the Charlotte Hornets. But their free agency has lacked any big-time moves that would appear to elevate Zion Williamson to the next level. Chris, oh boy, will New Orleans regret sending away Zion's running mate?
Well, let me start this off by telling you what Zion said in May. Myself, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo have a great relationship. I hope he stays. All right? I would want him back. That is what Zion Williamson said. Now, it is hard to imagine that David Griffin, the GM for the Pelicans, made this move, let Lonzo go or traded him without talking to Zion Williamson about it. All right? But David Griffin is also the guy that said he was miserable in Cleveland because essentially you had to answer to LeBron James and you couldn't build it your way, right? So I don't know if Griff consulted with Zion or not. He should have, because remember, I mentioned the quote in May. In June, The Athletic had a story saying Zion and his family members were unhappy with the Pelicans and concerned about the direction of the organization. So if Zion was not consulted on this move and didn't give his approval, I think they will regret it. You know, unless they signed Devontae Graham, and I think he's a good player. I think he's more of a backup on a really good team. He's a three-point specialist. But unless they have a major jump without Lonzo Ball, then they could end up regretting this, because the bottom line is this about Zion. So if Zion doesn't like this move, then they're going to regret it. Now, what is Lonzo as a player? I don't think, he doesn't look like he's going to be a perennial all-star. But I do think he's a very solid player. I think he's a good pro. Last year averaged almost 15 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds a game. He has shown and proven that he's got a work ethic, right? 38% from 3 the last 2 years. A guy that couldn't hit the side of the backboard in his first 2 seasons with the Lakers. All right, and then he improved from a 41%, 42% foul shooter his first 2 years in the league to 78% last year. I mean, the dude has been in the gym working on his game, so I give him credit. He's a very good defender. I thought he was a good fit with Zion. They clearly didn't have any use for him in New Orleans because last year, Stan Van Gundy took the ball out of his hands and put it in Zion's hands for half the game.
Yeah, he did.
So I'm not, they just totally fell out of love with Lonzo Ball. And I do think he's going to be a productive player in this league. I think he's a good fit with Zach LaVine and Nick Vucevic in Chicago. I know they're young. I'm not saying they're going to have a great season. But he's a solid player, and it really all depends on Zion. If Zion doesn't like it, and if they don't have a significant jump in wins, then they'll probably regret this move.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, Chris, and I'm basically going to say this. I don't think that they got better or worse letting Lonzo go. I really don't. I don't think that that's a foregone conclusion. I certainly don't think they got better in acquisition, but I don't know that they got worse letting him go. So now the question for me becomes, is it the chemistry that you have disrupted? If you've disrupted chemistry and belief and trust, because what happens in the league so often, I can recall my rookie year, you know, I used to talk to Daryl Green and a couple other guys, Bruce Smith, and they would always talk to me about you're a high draft pick. You got to put in your work. You got to put in your time, but you also got to stay focused because relationships come and go in the National Football League. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, they literally come and go. I could be sitting with my locker mate today, and then tomorrow he's walking upstairs taking his playbook and he's being released. He's going somewhere else. That became very prominent early in my career. So what I learned very quickly was I stopped building relationships. I stopped building true relationships with my teammates because it was very painful when they left. You know, they be getting the pink slip. They looking at me as they walking out the door. I'm looking at them. We like, Mackie, dad, like, keep my brother away from me. Mac, like, I got tired of having that, right? I did not want to have color purple moments every single day in the locker room. And so when you think about what does that mean chemistry-wise, well, maybe it doesn't seem like much, but now as an older man that is a coach that believes in looking at what examining the chemistry between players and coaches, if you start eroding the trust and the chemistry and the beliefs like we were talking about early on with Tom Brady in Tampa, you take away something that has to be evident and present to have success. And to me, if I don't have an accountability for my fellow man that's my teammate that I'm in the trenches with, how are we going to play at our top level? How are we going to be able to win the big games? How are we going to be able to make it through the adversity? So if you're putting Lonzo in, well, Lonzo's a non-factor now in this equation, but if you're putting Zion and other guys on this Pelicans team in a situation where the accountability level can't be built, if the cords and the strings of the relationship cannot grow and grow stronger, because I think Lonzo with the Pelicans could have possibly evolved and developed into an all-star caliber player. Maybe it was just going to take a little longer. But now you're not going to know it. And then what type of impact does that have on the Pelicans team in terms of if you're going to get rid of guys like Lonzo, who could possibly be a core guy for our team, who else is next? Yeah. What else is next? And if we're not improving our team with the move definitively, then why did we even do it in the first place? And that becomes a major question and a possibility of development for Zion.
Yeah. Oh, boy. This is such a fun topic. I could unload on everyone in that wretched organization.
Hey.
I don't know what the Pelicans are doing. First of all, you guys need to know this. Their owner has never paid the luxury tax. They basically just got cheap. They said, oh, Lonzo wants 21 mil? Well, we're not touching that. Well, you downgraded to Devontae Graham. And Chris was nice and said he's I think a solid player, a bit of a chucker, 37% from deep, but not efficient at all, is not an assist guy, is not very good defensively. There's a reason he was expendable in Charlotte, because LaMelo Ball was significantly better than him. That being said, David Griffin is one of the big problems there. He has screwed up Zion, and ultimately, David Griffin is going to end up driving Zion to the New York Knicks, where he'll be playing for my Knicks in probably 2 or 3 years. Because David Griffin, every night he goes to bed cuddling with all the lottery picks he got from the Lakers. Oh, I love you, lottery picks. We've got so many future draft picks. When in reality, you look at the product on the floor, and as Zion's family said, that Chris articulated well, they're not happy with it, okay? This is not even a playoff team. Imagine Zion, LeVar, looking at Ja Morant get to the playoffs already.
Yeah, and looking good.
Trae Young getting to the playoffs that quickly.
And looking good.
Luka Doncic, like, Zion's like...
And looking good.
What do we have here? What am I doing? And, and listen, I know David Griffin is protected in the media because, Chris, you've covered the league for 25 years. You know this. These guys who go to TV from being the GM, they cuddle up with all the reporters, and no reporters are critical of them. Well, I'm going to be critical of him. I'm not texting David Griffin. I don't care. All he's done is made bad decisions. Getting Zion Stan Van Gundy. Bro, they fired the guy in 9 months. That was a complete disaster. David Griffin, oh, let's bring in Steven Adams. Let's bring in Adams and put him next to Zion. Oh, that was a train wreck, and we gave him a lot of money. This is a dumpster fire of a franchise, and I feel terrible for Zion Williamson because we're wasting some of the best years of one of the quality young players. Chris, the guy shot 61% from the field. He's doing Shaq-like numbers in the paint, and that's not an exaggeration. Nobody has scored in the paint this young in their career since Shaq. That's what Zion's doing, 27 a night, and it's being wasted. I'm just frustrated for Zion, but the good news is my Knicks, because I was born in New York, they're going to be getting Zion in a couple years, and it'll be great.
Well, look, slow down on that, J-Mac. Look, it's possible. They got Worldwide West there. Leon Rose has done a good job. Scott Perry's still in that front office. It's possible. But they also were going to get LeBron, right? They also were going to get KD, right? So let's slow down a little bit. Maybe it'll happen. It'd be nice. But maybe things will work out in New Orleans. I will say this. I thought Lonzo was a good fit there. All right? Because you've got a guy in Zion who can run the floor, who's an interior player, and Lonzo as a pass-first point guard, I would have thought that would have been perfect. All right? And then you've got Brandon Ingram, a guy who likes to have the ball in his hands. And Lonzo's a guy that is a ball mover. Okay? Lonzo doesn't have to have the ball in his hands all the time. I would have thought that would have been a nice fit with Ingram. And then when Lonzo adds the shot, he adds a three-point shot, so he actually can be a spot-up shooter. I would have thought that he would have been a good fit. And J-Mac, you might be right in that it might boil down to money. Because obviously B.I. is paid, and then they want to pay, Zion's going to get paid, assuming he wants to stay. And maybe they just didn't want to give Lonzo